So earlier today, my girlfriend and I signed up for a gym here in our new location, at least for the rest of the month of March. And we also got in our first workout here in this new city. And something that immediately stuck out to me was the fact that there were literally, no exaggeration, only 5 people in this gym. I counted. There were only 5 people in this gym. And I found this to be really interesting because, granted, it was maybe 1 o'clock p.m., but even at 1 o'clock p.m. back home in the US, you're never going to see just 5 people in the gym unless you go really late at night, so maybe 2 a.m. 2 a.m. you might see fewer than 5 people, but here I've noticed that generally speaking, although this is an exaggerated example, I've noticed that generally speaking, gym culture is not the same as it was back home. Fewer people here seem to be heavily invested in the gym in the same way that some Americans are. And yet, in spite of that, Dutch people, by and large, both anecdotally, so in my personal experience, and statistically, in terms of life expectancy, are healthier than Americans. And I find this to be really interesting because I think that there is this stigma that you have to go to the gym, you have to work out to be healthy. And look, if you want to be swole, if you want to be ripped, you want to be lean, whatever, yes, you need to go to the gym and you need to get underneath that barbell. That's my goal. I want to get swole, so I'm in the gym as much as I possibly can be. But for a lot of people here in the Netherlands, that's not necessarily the goal. And even back home, for a lot of people, that's not the goal. A lot of people back home go to the gym primarily for health reasons. And I find it interesting because, again, gym culture here is not nearly as prominent as it was back home, and yet people are healthier. So how can this be possible? How can this be possible that people here are not as active in the gym yet are still healthier, still live longer, and generally enjoy higher overall well-being scores per most credible survey, poll, website things? I don't know what they're called, but per most research studies. Well, there are a few reasons for this that I've personally identified in my 13 months of having lived here in the Netherlands. And in this video, I want to share those reasons. That said, the first reason why Dutch people are healthier is because of the food portion sizes. Food portion sizes are a lot smaller here. Now, I think that the difference between American portion sizes and Dutch portion sizes, oh my God, I just ran into that branch. Pay attention where you walk. I'm not gonna cut that out. I'm not gonna cut that out. That was kind of embarrassing. But anyways, Dutch portion sizes do tend to be a lot smaller, but it's not as big of a difference as I think many people are led to believe, at least in my experience. Maybe that's in part because I'm vegan, so the restaurants that I went to back home are vegan restaurants, and they tend to be a little more stingy with the portion sizes. But I don't know, that's just in my experience. From a restaurant standpoint, the portion sizes tend to be somewhat similar. The difference isn't nearly as big as you would expect. The drink portion sizes are very different. The drink portion sizes are definitely very, very, very different. But the food portion sizes are not that different unless you go to the grocery store, which for the vast majority of people who are not overwhelmingly wealthy, that's going to be the case. I know that in my case, my girlfriend and I do go to the grocery store. As a matter of fact, I think we've eaten out maybe a total of 5 times in our relationship. So that's not something that we do a lot. We rely on groceries. And the thing is, with Dutch groceries, more often than not, the groceries are going to come in much smaller packaging. So let's say, for example, if you want to buy a box of cereal, okay, you want to buy a box of cereal, that box of cereal in the Netherlands, the family size box of cereal, is going to be a lot smaller than your regular American box of cereal. Okay, those American boxes of cereal sometimes look like literal packages with branding on them. Big boxes. And that's just one example. But overall, even when it comes to the healthy food, the portion sizes tend to be much grander in the US. And the thing is, there's this misconception, and I'll talk about healthy food versus processed food here in a second, but there is this misconception within a lot of people's minds that the quality of your food or how healthy your food is what determines whether you lose weight. And of course, being overweight generally correlates with disease and premature death. I mean, this is just simple science. Generally speaking, people think that it's about eating healthy. It's not about eating healthy, it's about eating less. Now, you should eat healthy to make sure your internals are on point. But even if all you did was just eat less of the junk food that you're eating, you would still give yourself a better chance to live a longer, healthier life. That said, Dutch people don't just consume smaller portion sizes just simply due to necessity, because actually just want to go a little bit deeper with this. Here, the grocery stores tend to be smaller, and you don't really see those bulk supplier type stores that go direct to consumer like you would in the US with Costco, and I don't really know where I'm at, just kind of walking through the woods right now. But with Costco and with Sam's Club, I've never been to Costco, but I have been to Sam's Club many times. And at Sam's Club, the size, the quantity of food that you can get at one time is unbelievable. It is completely unfathomable to your average Dutch person who's never experienced it before. But basically just know that in the US, those kinds of stores are accessible to the public, to the masses. They have those kinds of stores in the Netherlands as well. They're less common for one, but also, to my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but to my knowledge, you have to own a business. You have to own a legitimate business that is registered with the KVK, the Dutch Chamber of Commerce, in order to access these stores. Whereas back home, to access Sam's Club or Costco, you just need a membership card, which I don't know how much it costs, but I'm sure it's not that expensive. And actually, it can save you quite a bit of money on food over a long time horizon, because when you buy in bulk, generally it's cheaper. But you probably offset that with the added health expenses that you incur later on in life from eating these exaggerated portion sizes. But I digress. Dutch people not only eat less, but they also eat healthier. They tend to eat healthier, and there are a couple of reasons for this. For one, it's just access. The Netherlands is one of the largest agricultural producers, I don't know if I really phrased that correctly, but basically one of the largest farming countries in the world. And when I say largest, I don't mean physical size, I mean in terms of output. If you go around the Netherlands and you've never been here before, you'd be surprised to find that a pretty good portion of the country is covered in farmland. And that was definitely something that surprised me coming out here. I thought that it was going to be just very dense and sort of overbuilt. But you see, I'm walking around in nature right now. You have all of these trees and whatnot. And a lot of land is also, once again, farmland. So there's just access to this fresh, healthy food. But also, the standards for food are higher. So as far as, I don't know what the Dutch's version of the FDA is, but their regulation of the quality of food is more stringent than America's. So Dutch people are literally being given healthier food. They're being given healthier food. And of course, if that's what you have access to, that's just what you're going to consume. So Dutch people do tend to eat healthier. Also, I've noticed, and maybe this is in part because the quantity of this healthy food is much greater. It's just more accessible, so there's larger supply of it. But I've noticed that healthy food tends to be cheaper here as well. Now, it's still not cheap by any means. It is still cheaper to buy junk food, which is a problem, plain and simple. Netherlands, America, it doesn't matter. That is always an issue, in my opinion. But at the same time, it's still cheaper than the US. In the US, a lot of times the cheapest thing you can do is just go to McDonald's. And I'm not saying that, once again, eating healthy food is the cheapest thing you can do here, but it's not that expensive to eat healthy here. I don't know where this leads to. I'm actually going to turn around and walk this way. But Dutch people definitely tend to eat healthier by and large. And of course, when you eat healthier and you eat smaller portion sizes as well, that in and of itself is going to be conducive to a much longer lifespan and a much healthier lifespan overall. Especially when paired with the next reason why Dutch people tend to be healthier than Americans, which is the overall activity level. Dutch people tend to be much more active than Americans. And I think a big part of the reason why is because here, activity isn't just something that you do in and of itself. It's not just a means to an end. It's more of a way of life. For example, you see the bike right here. This is actually my bike. And, well, at least for the month, I'm renting it. I use this bike to come to this wooded area. Back home, I likely would have driven to an area like this because there just aren't really ways, especially in desolate areas like this, to cycle safely to these off-grid wooded type areas. But here, it's normal, it's planned for. And not only is it normal, but it's normalized socially. So people here, again, they don't just bike for leisure purposes or walk for leisure purposes. They do it because that's just how they live. It's a form of transportation. It's utilitarian in nature, but they're also killing two birds with one stone. Now, to be fair, I do see people participating in sporting activities just for leisure's sake. Now, on the topic of leisure activities, the next thing that contributes to the overall health of your average Dutch person is the emphasis on work-life balance. While nutrition and fitness are exceedingly important and should not be overlooked when it comes to overall health and well-being, something that a lot of people overlook, especially, cough cough, Americans, is the importance of managing one's stress levels. You see, if you're constantly dealing with stress, your body doesn't function nearly as well as it should. It doesn't function at full capacity. And as a result, it starts to break down. Stress does kill. It causes premature death. And I say this as somebody who, when I moved to the Netherlands, probably raised the average stress level of people in the Netherlands by 20%. Okay, I deal with a lot of stress in my day-to-day life, such as the life of an entrepreneur. But at the same time, I've built a high stress tolerance. I think that for a lot of Dutch people, that's not to say that they don't have a high stress tolerance as well. And I think that also the work-life balance component of stress management is a little overstated. Dutch people do work very hard, but I think that for a lot of Dutch people, they opt to focus on managing or reducing their stress levels instead. And in order to do this, what they do is they prioritize leisure. They prioritize leisurely activities. They prioritize family time. They prioritize these things which contribute to well-being and effectively offset stress. So sometimes managing stress isn't even about lowering stress levels, although that is a very useful way to go about it. sometimes it's just a matter of finding activities to offset your stress, because leisure, family time, things of that nature do contribute to happiness and well-being. As a matter of fact, to my knowledge, in most blue zones, I think all blue zones maybe, one of the common denominators is actually an emphasis on community. And I think that here in the Netherlands, these leisure activities typically are performed or engaged in more of a group setting. So, I mean, part of this is just the nature of some of these activities. I don't know if you can see this up ahead, but if you can't see it yet, you'll probably see it here in a second. There are people literally just riding horses down the street. And that's just an example right there. I mean, even though it's not physically strenuous, that probably makes them very happy. I know that would make my girlfriend very, very happy if she had the opportunity to do that, to pursue that kind of hobby, because she loves horses. But I'm willing to bet that the people on those horses right there on this left side are very, very happy in life. Maybe not all the time, but just generally speaking, they're probably very happy because they're pursuing things that they love to do. Even though there's no direct monetary reward, maybe there is, I don't know, maybe they're somehow getting paid to ride those horses. And if they are, then I definitely need to figure out how so that I can set my girlfriend up with that. But people here aren't necessarily just thinking about how they can get to a bag. They're not just thinking about how they can increase their net worth all the time. Doesn't mean Dutch people are careless with money. As a matter of fact, the opposite is true. Dutch people are very, very stringent and frugal with money. And when they do spend money, it seems like they prioritize experiences over things. And when you prioritize experiences over things, when you emphasize making memories over flexing on other people, you're going to be happier. You're going to experience less stress. Or if you do experience a lot of stress, you're going to offset that stress with your overall well-being. And when you do that, you're going to be healthier. It's not rocket science. It's not coincidence. It's just embedded within the cultural, the societal DNA of Dutch people. Dutch people adopt this collectivism approach and focus less on flexing on their peers and more on enjoying life with their peers. And I'm speaking in vast generalities. I know there are exceptions to this rule, but by and large, this is just what I've noticed. And the statistics back this up, that Dutch people live longer, are less obese, and are generally happier and healthier than Americans. It's not a coincidence. It's simply the way that they choose to live.